does black love mean to you?
Black love is what most people in the black community want to achieve. Apart from professional success, it's the thing that helps push the culture forward for generations. It is something that is to be achieved and to grow upon. From watching close family members to even television shows, it has been almost the pinnacle of blackness and what creates strength between our people. But these early struggles is what can be key to making those healthy, long-lasting black relationships.
My name is Ashley Reese. I am 35 years old and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Georgia. Black relationships are very, very important. To dive deep into that is very important because if we go back to slavery, there's a lot of issues as we know it occurred around slavery time. So our women, were abused. They had to do things that they necessarily didn't want to do. And then you have our men that they were abused themselves. They were beaten, they were killed. The women were killed too, but the men were as well. And so if massa ever found out about, a black man or a black woman getting together, typically he was taken out, taken away, and even if they got married, he was taken away and put on another plantation. And so this is why black relationships are very important, because we've been through a lot as a people.
Hard to have because of the fact of like how people actually think of us as a whole. For example, like deadbeat father, or the negativity that we have with each other with women and male now these days, especially for black people. So I feel like we emphasize black love because it's actually harder to reach that love, especially black love.
Black love means power, to say the least. Growing up, seeing two parents married my whole life, black love means a lot, and it's something I strive for daily and desire in my future.
We need more households where there are two healthy individuals, like the mom and the dad is very healthy. We need that black love, so that way that example that is being shown inside of that household carries over into generations and generations to come. It starts in the household. Black love starts in the household. So if kids are seeing that their parents are taking it very seriously, black love, it'll eventually carry over into something even better when it comes to time when they're needing to consider like a relationship or anything.
It's like something you feel like you're at home to, like something very like cozy, nostalgic, like something you can always go to. Black love is something that is very special in our community and something that we desperately need.
For me, black love is very important because being biracial, I had like a lot of identity crisis, and being on my side, it was being raised predominantly in a white household. For me, it was being introduced into white culture and like what my mom, she was white, what my mom did in the household, this, that, and the third. However, because of that, there wasn't much acceptance because I am black passing. So for me, it was figuring out that identity for myself. And honestly, to be real, I feel like a lot of biracial people go through that. Eventually, I was raised by my father, and this was like, it was much more, it was just a greater experience for me. And I want my child to grow up to not have to feel like they're having to throw themselves and fit into a group of people.
Relationships. Seemingly everyone wants to be in one, and for some, it's the ultimate goal of their life. But it seems like as the times have passed and the world has ever changed, Breakups, divorce, and everything in between is at an all-time high. Is it because we've lost our way in the art of love, or is it because people have learned their value? People in the modern day have seemingly struggled to find a middle ground and an understanding with their counterparts, and are often voiceless in situations. With social media taking a huge part in how we see and perceive about each other and what our idea of a modernized relationship should be, it has taken its turns for better and for worse.
How would you describe modern dating and relationship on top of other things?
Modern dating and relationships.
Ooh.
I feel like there's a lot of things that go into modern relationships, a lot of things that you have to consider. Back in the day, it was kind of just like you were courting somebody for a while. Now you have like talking, and then y'all are like either sleeping together or start dating, and then there's a lot of issues depending on if people want to be monogamous or not, and what that looks like, and if they feel like they're being exclusive. And so I feel like tricky is the best word that I could describe it with.
People that have trauma that we carry into each other, and we don't know how to deal with this trauma, or sometimes even notice sometimes it's there, and we cling to find love or what we think is going to give us peace, and it doesn't give us peace.
Lack of trust and communication, for sure. Because a lot of problems can be resolved if you talk about it, but a lot of people aren't really comfortable talking about it, or just kind of assume that the other person should know. So without communication, a lot of relationships tend to fall apart, and that could be like romantic, friendships, business relationships, anything. So communication is important, and trust is also important. It's not good to project something from a past situation or relationship onto something or someone new. That you want to give everyone a fair chance and a fair try the first go around.
You should fight for the relationship when you see it being like value, when you see value in the relationship, when you see that y'all are trying to build something very powerful, y'all are working to help each other, y'all are fighting for each other, that's when you fight for it. Like, never just leave the relationship if you really see value in that relationship. And when it's time to leave a relationship when you feel yourself losing yourself.
It feels feels superficial, sometimes feels really trivial. Like, they're not really thinking about the things that I'm thinking of because I've done this and done that already. So modern dating, like from what I see nowadays, yeah, it's kind of like just like, oh, I like this person because they look good and they do this and they do that, and that might be a good, asset to my life. But really and truly, like, are you ready for that? Like, are you ready to make space for someone like that?
Dating is mainly hard more so because sometimes the person you feel might be for you doesn't look at you that same way, or they don't feel like you're right for them. And then it's like it can be vice versa. So the person you may feel isn't right for you, they may feel is right for you, and they may develop feelings towards you just the same way you might develop feelings for someone who isn't interested in you.
I do feel that if there was ever an example like you cheating on your partner, or prime example, you cheated on your partner, majority of the time the other person will go on social media, bash that person, expose things that should not be exposed, and because of that, that's when you open up this whole new can of worms of suicidal thoughts or depression and like other elements that come along with that regarding mental health. And I just feel like you should not expose people on social media. You should not use social media as a platform to reveal things that should be kept to you. I feel like some things you should keep to yourself and inside of your relationship.
Hi, my name is Alexius Denson. I'm a licensed clinical professional therapist. My current jobs right now, I do work a small private practice, but also I work in the community as a first responder for mental health and substance abuse crisis. So the main thing that I see is avoidance of being uncomfortable when it comes to communication. So what I mean by this is, if you feel bad and you don't want to tell the person that makes you feel bad, what do? We avoid the situation by not saying anything at all. And then what do? We either lash out or we isolate. We have more self-esteem issues, and we don't say nothing at all. So the main thing that I do tell my clients is, the worst thing is to not be uncomfortable. So to get yourself comfortable is to be assertive in your communication. So the main thing that I see is just the avoidance of those uncomfortable conversations in relationships. And that's more than just a partner, a friend, and even a family member.
With these modern relationships, sex and physical intimacy has been the driving force and catalyst of a lot of relationships, and in some aspect, it has taken over and caused these toxic traits to pop up within modern relationships. So, has sex taken its place over communicating and understanding your partner on a deeper level than emotional intimacy, with sex being used and talked about as this seemingly end all be all thing, or as a concept and idea of vulnerability and what it takes and means to be vulnerable makes people grasp intimacy differently?
Is sex something that modern relationships tend to revolve around too much?
Yeah, very much so.
Am I allowed to cuss?
I see nowadays that people are like slowing down on like the sexual part, but I feel like sex has been more important nowadays because everybody, wants that little quick physical intimacy, and sex is like the easier way to like get that.
It goes back to the social media thing where the best whatever is always displayed and it's always talked about and it's always mentioned. And that is not the main point of a relationship. I mean, it's a good addition, but it doesn't make a relationship. And if you don't have that chance to be vulnerable with each other, then you don't have the chance to make the sexual part work.
Because in this generation, it's about being toxic, like with the music, with everything. It's just toxicism right now. It's cute. Everyone thinks that, bad behavior is something that should be rewarded or something that's edgy. And it's not. Like it's everything's about sex now. Like a lot of people, they're really hypersexual. And so if you take that element away, they're kind of dull and boring. And so they tend to think other people are the same way without it. So I feel like a lot of people are addicted to sex and a lot of people were introduced too early, and so they think that that's all a relationship should be, when it's really just a piece of the puzzle, not the whole thing. So I definitely think people do it too early, and they let it blur the lines between an actual connection versus just like a friend or something.
For me personally, being a black male raised up in a household of being strong men and women, I personally do not be as vulnerable as I should. Because of that, it may have my partner look like, okay, why you don't cry when I say this, or why this don't happen, why that don't happen. Me personally, I always say I was built different. That could be taken in many ways, but I do feel that it is important. It is very much essential for you to communicate how you feel, show feelings, and it's okay to be in a place of like you is upset and you just need to cry, and it's very much okay.
They want you to be vulnerable in times so it feels like that you trust them, but don't be too vulnerable, because then it's like you can't lead. I want you to be able to lead me, and if you're breaking down and aren't able to properly lead me because you don't know how to handle your emotions, then I feel like you're inadequate to lead me.
In this generation of men, we like to put our image for women as how we perform in the bed. And it's kind of just like, it creates insecurities. Most of that stems from porn. Most of that stems from what they hear, just societal norms for men. So definitely, for sure.
There's nothing wrong with dating, right? Date. But dating doesn't mean you have to have sex with every person that you go on a date with or every person that you hang out with. What we find is when you end up having sex with people, if you look at it on a spiritual level, I'm not talking religious, but if you look at it on a spiritual level, you are taking on their baggage. So you have to be really mindful of, who am I engaging with on a physical level? Who am I engaging with on a mental and emotional level too? but physically especially, sex always tends to complicate things, especially if the both of you aren't on the same level about what you're doing. So if I'm talking to somebody and my idea is I want to be in a relationship, but that other person keeps saying or communicating, I just want to chill, I just want to hang out, I just want to get to know you. Respect that. Don't try to pressure that person into dating you. They already told you what it was. And don't have sex with that person if they already told you that they just want to chill and get to know you.
Mental health amongst the Black community has been taken more seriously over the last few years, but the Black man has struggled the most with it over time. With the idea of some having to hold what we perceive as a manly image and them being vulnerable as weak has caused lots of issues over the years within our community. Does society really care? Does society wants our Black men to get help, or are they just not ready to understand them yet?
Does society care about men's mental health?
That's a great question.
No.
Not really.
I don't really think the world wants us to be vulnerable as men.
Not enough.
The crazy thing is, Black men are actually vulnerable, but how they express it, it comes out as anger, or it comes out looking like dominance, or it comes out looking like I'm just going to work and support the family, and that's kind of just it. I do see this generation being more expressive about their emotions. So I do feel like men, even in this generation, in the past generations, they've always been told that they are not supposed to express their emotions. But we are seeing a change. It's slowly but surely. But I will say this, and you guys probably know this as well. Men have the higher rates of actually attempting and completing suicide compared to women. So with that, we are seeing more men coming into therapy, but with that, it is harder because how they deal with depression is to isolate or to be angry. So they are vulnerable. They just don't know how to deal with their vulnerability because they were never taught that. In this generation, it's still hard because it's a tug and pull. So yes, I am seeing vulnerability, but how we see vulnerability as a female compared to a male, in my opinion, is totally different. So I see it. It's just not healthy.
They say they do, just that way it sounds more equal, or so that way they sound more inclusive. No one actually cares, because last month was men's mental health month, and who even really did anything for it? But I think Women's History Month is getting ready to come up, and a lot of people are getting ready to celebrate for it. I think in theory, it should matter, but it doesn't when it comes down to it. People want to use it for like equality, but just in terms of how it's viewed socially, people don't really care about men because we're seen as like these creatures that only do bad things because of the idea of what we should represent. No one really cares about men as much as they say that they do.
But like when we are vulnerable, it's like I stated previously, we're looked upon as being weak and like not being able to hold our own when we are vulnerable, when we are trying to cry out to someone. But when we are crying out to someone, when we are being vulnerable, and people start to care when it's too late. They start to care when somebody done committed suicide.
Men's voices on those topics have just now started becoming more listened to. Like at one point, men couldn't. It was really out of the norm for any man to talk about their mental health or to open up and share their feelings or anything like that. So men have really just now started attempting to push the boundary and open up more about their feelings and let their guard down and do all those type of things that most people might find unmanly. It's kind of almost hard. It's hard to give a definitive answer. It really I feel like it definitely hasn't been heard enough. There's still men out there that are struggling with those same type of issues, and they feel like they have nobody to go to or nobody to talk to about these issues, so they bottle all of them up and walk around with their guard up all the time.
Because I think in the society we live in, men are supposed to be the breadwinners, the head of household, the one that has all their stuff together. So they never want to see their men cry. They never want to see their men have a bad day, because if they're not doing good, then that means my family's not doing good. That means my house isn't in order. That means for some, my sex life is trash. And so I think we just heighten that masculinity, because there's always a debate between masculinity versus femininity. And I think a man being sensitive means that they're feminine, and a lot of women or men are not attracted to that.
Being vulnerable as a man in society is seen as like you're not hard enough, you know what I mean? Like, who would give you a job if you're too emotional to hold it as a man, you know what I mean? Because of society norms, and that's just the way it is. Or it's like, you know, as a black man, I never want to see, you know, my black man cry. Or it's like, you know, I need me a man who's gonna hold me this way accountable, and that's for relationship insecurities, being vulnerable in a relationship. However, I'm not going to say that it's continually getting worse, because I would say in some cases it is getting better. But that's why Black love is so important, because I feel like someone that's your race understands, because for Black men it's so different. It's a different ball game. And having a Black woman or a Black person on your side who's gone through these things and understands, that's the biggest thing, understands what you're going through, is just so important.
What I've seen working specifically with Black men in my practice is that being vulnerable is so hard. It's such a challenge for them, especially when you're not only dealing with the day-to-day stressors of life, but you're also dealing with society. You're dealing with racism. You're dealing with society telling you, you know, you shouldn't feel, or you shouldn't talk about your feelings, or you shouldn't cry because men don't do those things, boys don't do those things. But men are just as human as us females. And I think in society, it's more acceptable for women to feel than for men to feel. And so that's what causes a lot of men to not be more present emotionally, and show up in their own relationships as far as being vulnerable. So that's just my thoughts about it. That as men, it's okay to feel. It's okay to cry. Because those emotions turn into something else. And it reflects in every aspect of your life when you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Black love is the acknowledgement of making sacrifices. We as a couple have to adapt to one another, along with outside forces which affects one's everyday life. Black love to me can be affectionate, caring, passionate, strong, difficult, painful, and cherished. Black love has sustained the test of time.
My baby. So, where can I really start? So, thank you, for watching, my entire documentary at this point. You done seen the end of it, Thank y'all. Thank you to everybody who participated, helped me bring this to life. I really appreciate y'all, okay? Without y'all, man, this thing would have not been possible. Cause I done put my blood, sweat, and goddamn tears in this project, and I feel like it's giving back to me at this point, so I'm really grateful. Special shout out to everybody who helped me film, especially my LBJ, because Jesus Christ, if it wasn't for you ripping and running and getting me to these places, I wouldn't have this project done. So special shout outs to my LB, because These two legs was only going so far. But y'all watch the documentary, and I could tell, miss, it hit the fan. It hit the fan for sure. But I'm glad to bring a project like this about black love, especially from, black man perspective. I'm glad to bring it to life. So I hope you guys enjoyed the In Too Deep documentary. And who knows? Who knows? This can only just be the beginning. Peace out, y'all.